Hi, I am Feng, senior student at Beijing Foreign Studies University. The paper I will be presenting today is titled US-China Geopolitical Competition on Natural Gas, Conflicts and Opportunities. And now I will share my screen. So this is the title of my paper, and my presentation will follow the following outline, which is introduction, significance, case study, and conclusion. And now let's kick off. So why should you care about my study, or what is the background of my research? Well, my paper is based on the three following aspects. The first is that natural gas has become one of the most strategic fields in today's world, especially against the backdrop of the current Russia-Ukraine war. And the second one is the energy transition the world is undergoing. We are trying to meet the target of carbon peaking and carbon neutrality. So I think it is a very good topic. And the third one is geopolitical rivalry between China and the United States. We can see that the two countries are vying with each other, and particularly in the regions such as the Middle East and the South China Sea. Another motivation for me to write this paper is because China's mega deal with Qatar last year, which is a 60 billion US dollar and 27 purchase of LNG. So the research purpose of my paper is to help the academia and other readers to better understand the bilateral conflict and also its causes, and also particularly from the US perspective. And based on that, I raised two questions. The first one is, what are the major concerns of the United States about China's growing demand for natural gas? And the second one is, how will the United States respond to the challenges posed by China on this issue? And my findings are, the United States is not particularly worrying China's increasing natural gas demand from other countries because of its own massive LNG production. And the second one is, the US may seek more cooperation with China in terms of natural gas purchase and supply. And the two countries can actually together help maintain the stability of the world LNG market. So it leads to the significance of my study. So I believe that the original contribution of my paper to the academia is that I found the previous studies are mainly focused on cooperation and competition between China and the United States on energy issues. However, there's a distinct research gap. The first one is existing literature did not take natural gas separately from oil. But in my opinion, natural gas, with its increasing significance in the energy market, deserves more attention for its own study. And the second one is that research on Sino-US energy competition in the Middle East is not really updated. And we can find that most research today did not include the current Russia-Ukraine war, but the war actually has made the world energy market tumbling throughout the year. And last but not the least is that most study focused on China more because of its huge appetite, but relatively paid less attention on the United States. However, the United States is now becoming the largest exporter of LNG to China and also to other regions of the world. So I believe it's worthwhile to study its position. So what makes my study stand out? Well, I list the following three aspects. The one is that I focus only on natural gas, and I also keep abreast of the latest events of LNG competition, which is the case study I'm going to introduce, and the real-world competitions which means the Russia-Ukraine war. And the third one is I see the changing status of the United States in the world LNG market. So now let me introduce my case study. The facts of the case is that Qatar is moving closer to China with its capacity of liquefaction froze. Qatar is more able to supply China with more LNG. And we can see the mega deal, which is 27 years and about 60 billion US dollars worth. And the implication is that China, through this deal, can now control the world's biggest gas reservoir, and also it can attain the global best standards in this field. And we can see what is the response from the United States. The United States actually released two strategic documents. The first one is from the Department of State and called Qatar is one of the US closest military partners in the region. And the second one is the memorandum released by the White House, in which President Biden said that the two countries enjoy a shared desire of ensuring the stability of global energy supplies. So my key findings are the United States is actually trying to forge closer ties with Qatar by strengthening the bond. And the major concern of the country is to prevent China from getting closer to the oil giants in the region. But it hasn't really taken any countermeasures so far. So my analysis is from the following three aspects. The first is about the LNG production. So why did the United States didn't seem agitated by China's move? The first is that the United States has actually become the world's largest LNG exporter last year. And secondly is that the United States may not warrant its share in the Chinese market because it's now seeing rapid growth of its market share of LNG exports to China. And the second one is that the US LNG actually has a price advantage. The thing I find is that the US LNG is actually related to its own natural gas prices, while other sources of natural gas, such as that from Qatar, is linked to oil prices, which gives the US LNG a huge advantage. And the third factor is the geopolitical situation in the Middle East. Although China seemed to get closer with Qatar and other Middle East countries, but the United States is also strengthening bonds. The first one is that it will not compete for natural gas because of its own massive supply, and also it is seeking closer ties with Qatar and other gas suppliers to its NATO allies, such as Germany. So it would like to maintain that kind of good relationship. So the conclusion of my paper is that I raised two arguments. The first is, as I mentioned, the United States is not particularly worrying China's increasing natural gas demand from Qatar because of its own massive LNG production and supply. And this can be one of the highlights of my original contribution to the study of the area, because usually we think the United States and China will always compete for that gas supply in that region. And the second one is that China's closer ties to gas supplies in the Middle East doesn't really exchange the United States from those countries, and the US may not take immediate actions to just like revenge. So the broad implication of my paper is about the three aspects. The first is that the United States may seek more cooperation with China in terms of natural gas purchase and supply. And the second one is the US actually can better utilize its price advantage to help its company take higher share of market in China and also in other countries. And third one is that China and the United States should and can work together to help maintain the stability of the world LNG market. And that's my presentation. Thank you for listening.